Welcome back, friends. Today we are taking a look at the Amber Collection release of the Velociraptor from the Lost World Jurassic Park. So let's rip this package open and take a look at that sculpt. And here is our guy out of the package, or should I say gal, because of course all the dinosaurs at Jurassic Park were female, at least until some of them spontaneously changed sex and decided to become guys, so don't assume it's gender and don't misgender him. He can totally be a guy, this old tiger stripe Velociraptor here. And I gotta say, once he's out of the package, I'm pretty much digging the sculpt. This does definitely look like a Velociraptor, although it is just the same Velociraptor Mattel's made for the Amber Collection previously, done up in a new deco, obviously. And I will say it does feel a little cheap here and there because this torso, hollow. And I think the thighs and the neck are hollow a bit too, which isn't a big gripe. I mean, it's kind of understandable, but it does kind of add to a cheap kind of feeling here. The tail on the back is a totally different material. It is actually rubber because it has a bendy wire. Doesn't really look too different, so that's okay aesthetics wise, I think. But you know, in hand, it definitely feels different, and you know, kind of throws you off how this kind of rubbery texture, like, well, dinosaur skin, you kind of want it to be applied all over, kind of like those Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie figures had it all over. Anyways, sculpt on the face, looking pretty good. This definitely looks like a Velociraptor. I appreciate the wrinkles and the folds in the skin there. And, you know, probably the coolest thing is the articulated toe, which we'll look at when we get to articulation. But I will say, once you articulate them down, there's kind of this odd little gap, you know, in the socket where the toe goes. And this one's a little bit looser, and this one's a little bit stiffer on mine, has a little bit less range. And right there, I mean, well, I guess we know the dinosaur's gender now, don't we? I'm just kidding. That's a hole for the peg stand that it came with there. And the bottom of his right foot, just his right foot, has a little, you know, peg hole carved out. I guess it's not a peg hole, it's just the Jurassic Park logo to let you know this is an official Jurassic Park licensed dinosaur, and not just some generic dinosaur, because, you know, any company could make a Velociraptor or a creature, you know, designed like this. But that lets you know it's from Jurassic Park. Not too much to say about the sculpt, honestly. It's got wrinkles and textured skin everywhere. The details are definitely there. The teeth, I think, could be a bit sharper, but when we look at the teeth, let's start talking about that paint, because I think the inside of the mouth is probably part of the impressive paint job that Mattel did on this guy, because it's got little glossy bits inside, and, you know, it seems like it's got a real pattern going on with the light pink, dark red, almost like striped. But I mean, hey, this guy's striped all over, so I guess that makes sense. And the stripes are pretty clean on him, and I'm not sure if this is like an intentional thing or just like a factory error. I mean, it's not on the other shoulder over there, but it looks almost like they try to continue the stripe pattern on the joints, which is totally not a Mattel thing to do. So, you know, it's not on any other joints, obviously, so I'm pretty inclined to believe that's just a happy accident on mine there. What also is, you know, I would hope to be a happy accident, but I don't think it is the orange on the head, just like going above the eye over here on both sides. I think it's meant to come down further. Even if you look at the photo on the back of the packaging, I mean, first of all, this guy looks a bit more red than orange on the top of his skin there, but I mean, I guess that's the filter of the photo, because they've got some, you know, discoloration going on. But look, the darker color on top definitely comes lower on the top half of the head than it does on this guy, where, like, there's hardly any orange on the side at all. It's just pretty much all on the very tip top of the head, whereas, you know, in the film, actually comes down at least to the top of the upper lip here on both sides, and, you know, that paint is just absent. But the paint that's here, I mean, it's pretty good. I don't know why the eyes are gold. They're like a bronzy dark gold instead of like yellow, like the eyes would actually be. So that's a little weird, and missing orange. But other than that, everything else is very clean. I appreciate the fade of the orange on the side here. Stripes look clean. It honestly makes him look a lot more like a tiger. Like, if you just look at one little section, he looks more like a tiger than a dinosaur, actually. And, you know, this doesn't look like a real Velociraptor, obviously. Looks like Jurassic Park for a Velociraptor, but, you know, I digress. The paint is pretty good overall, aside from those two main issues with the eyes and the orange not coming down far enough on the head. Now, articulation's a whole different animal on this guy, because for once, this is a Mattel figure that can actually look up a decent ways, and down too, for that matter. But beyond that, it's a Mattel figure with articulated jaw, and the, you know, articulation scheme they got on the head is a little bit strange, because you think they would just make like a solid piece and then give it an articulated jaw, but no. The top half is articulated as well, and then there's a separate joint for moving the head up and down, you know, get some side action, and swivels at the bottom half of the neck. Actually, it doesn't swivel at the top here at all, strangely. But I mean, you think they would just make these two one solid piece and then do that with the lower jaw, and, like, I guess Mattel felt this wasn't wide enough and they couldn't engineer it to go this tiny extra distance, and give us our satisfying open mouth that goes rawr. But whatever, we wound up getting a double ball joint on the neck. It gets some range there on the upper half and a lot more on the lower half. So if you combine them, he gets great range up and down. Can do some side to side, and it only swivels at the lower half. Shoulders are hinge and swivel. They go about 90, and now that I'm looking at the hinge all the way down, it looks like they did try to continue that tiger stripe pattern. I mean, they didn't do a very good job of it, really, but I mean, like, good on you for at least trying something there, Mattel. Also hinge and swivel at the elbow. They get past 90, which is very good. Swivel all the way around, and then another hinge and swivel at the wrist. They get to about 90 right there and swivel all the way around, of course. Big disappointment on this guy is the lack of any kind of torso articulation. I guess they didn't want to bother to engineer that because they wanted the torso to stay hollow and make the figure cheaper, even though it's already priced at $30, which is kind of a lot for this kind of figure when considering, how much is hollow. I think we deserve some kind of ab, diaphragm, joint, whatever you want to call this, spot on a dinosaur. But we do get a ball joint at the base of the tail. It moves surprisingly little left and right, honestly. Up and down, same amount pretty much. But then past that, we got a bendy wire in there, so it lets us get our most poses like way back here. Like try and pose it up here. The rubber is just too fat and thick and it doesn't really hold any pose. It's honestly really just like having another ball joint or two way back here, and then seems like it ends right around here, and then this is all just a rubber that's been curved by the packaging. Hips are on hinge discs. They can swivel all the way around, but the hinge is kind of like comically short. Doesn't get much lateral movement out of there. Then we got hinge and swivel upper knees, hinge and swivel lower knees, or high ankles, whatever you want to call them. They get really good range. They can go far back there. And then we get true hinge and swivel ankles down here at the bottom of the digit-grade legs. These guys get pretty good range. Final points of articulation, as I mentioned before. The little toes can go up and down. This one's kind of stiff on mine, but that gives you a better idea of the intended range. I think it's just a simple hinge in there. Very good articulation. I'm pretty disappointed with the lack of anything in the torso. Also think it would have been cool to get like a separate tongue on a hinge, like articulated tongue, but as Mattel, I'm not expecting that much, honestly. I'm pretty much excited that it looks up, frankly. Packaging for this guy is pretty similar to the human characters from the Amber collection. It's got a big golden backdrop in there and the weird cutout corner with the embossed T-Rex logo right there. It says the VELOCIRAPTOR and Lost World, which is, the movie it's from, says it on the side there too. And on the back we get a still from the movie in the form of that little photo inside the little Amber collection, and indeed a little write-up there also, which you can read and pause right now if you want. But there's not much to it that we haven't seen with the human characters from the Amber collection before, except of course that it's much wider, so let's crack this guy open. So you pretty much slide the tray out, and then you gotta slide the card back out too if you want to get the little base that's in there, because it is attached, and man, is this card hard to slide out. Really gotta give it a good old tug, or just destroy the entire packaging, I guess. Yeah, I don't know what Mattel was thinking, because I pretty much have to disassemble the entire packaging to get the accessory out here, because the little tab, the plastic tab on the top, slots through both the outer box and the card insert that's colored amber back there, which, you can get kind of a nice look at now. But, I mean, that's pretty crappy design, Mattel, honestly, because, got to do all this work just to get to our little tiny plastic base. I don't know, maybe there's an easier way to do it, I'm not sure, but inside the tray, the VELOCIRAPTOR has a twist tie around each hand for a total of 2, and then 2 around each ankle for a total of 6 twist ties. I mean, that seems a bit excessive, don't you think? And packaging's already kind of hard to open in the first place, so that's Mattel, what do you expect? I guess we gotta cut these guys off. Six twist tie things that are very difficult to remove, and on top of that, the tail is poking through the tray, so you gotta slot that out. Definitely not kid-friendly or easy to open, but hey, thankfully I'm not keeping that package in, so I mean, it could be a lot better, but at least I finally got this guy out of there. For accessories, Lost World VELOCIRAPTOR comes with this base that comes in 2 pieces, and that's it. I mean, I guess VELOCIRAPTORs don't accessorize too much, so that makes sense. What doesn't make sense, though, is this base is the same one we've gotten before, the VELOCIRAPTORs in the Amber collection, and it's not amber! I mean, it's still sculpted to look like the amber fossil, but it's just clear now. And I don't know what's going on with that. I mean, you got this, transparent arm, which I think has always been transparent, and the base itself was amber colored. And you just slot this into the here little hole. And I think it's meant to be a one-time thing, because once it's in there, it doesn't really want to come out. You can swivel it, but it's very stiff. And then it's hinged up there and hinged up there. These are not screws, unfortunately, so you can't tighten them over time, but they seem pretty tight as of right now. Only time will tell how they wear off. Still pretty disappointed that it's not amber colored. I mean, you're gonna have some amber in your amber collection, right, Mattel? Anyways, a little peg on the top of this base would just go into the cloaca of your Velociraptor, which is what dinosaurs actually have, because they are birds, so that's what they have instead of human organs down there. And yeah, it does its job, making it stand up, and also get it to do some pretty cool poses. Let's try and do that. Okay, this has all become worth it. This is amazing. I love this figure now. Okay, I mean, it's not that great. It's kind of a typical Mattel release, but it is kind of well done. It's not the worst figure ever. I mean, the space is pretty plain Jane kind of stuff, but it works well enough, and you can get these awesome poses enough. I think it speaks more to the strength of the Velociraptor character design, or creature design, whatever you want to call it, than it does to the actual strength of the toy. But I mean, this is pretty cool looking once you find a little pose you like and get him roaring at the camera. Now for the scale, friends, this is one of those figures that's a bit harder to do, but on average, Tiger Stripe is going to stand about 6 inches or 15 centimeters tall if you go to the top of his head. Maybe a bit more, a bit less, depending on how you position the legs here. But if we measure from head to tail, he easily reaches the 12-inch mark, or 31 centimeters all the way across there. Now I may be running a bit short on other Velociraptor figures to compare this guy to, but as always, here he is next to my 6-inch Batman and Spider-Man, so you can get a sense of how it scales with your standard 6-inch superhero figure. And here's the Velociraptor with the other figures in the Amber collection, Dr. Ian Malcolm and Mr. Hold On To Your Butts Arnold. So do I ultimately recommend this Velociraptor from Lost World, friends? Well, yeah, I mean, it's a decent enough release, which is actually really good for Mattel standards. I mean, just keep in mind, it's going to be a Mattel figure still, even though it's pretty cool looking. It's still got those weird backwards Mattel decisions, like let's hollow out the torso and not put a diaphragm joint in there for some reason, probably just to cheap out on, the product and save a little bit of money. And then let's make our base clear, which, something that really irks me with Mattel, like, they always do this with, same thing with DC Multiverse Collection, that was, like, for the collectors, where they made the bases not match, and it's, like, kind of ruins the collection aspect of your collection, which is called the Amber Collection. And the other figures had amber-colored bases, which all made sense, and now you decide to make it not make sense for whatever reason. So, I mean, if you have the Jurassic Park 1 Velociraptor that actually has the amber-colored base, I can see you kind of not wanting this because it doesn't match, and not to mention the fact that, the base being clear means the Jurassic Park logo there doesn't stand out nearly as well as it, used to. So, a lot of kind of odd decisions like that, but for the most part, the actual figure is kind of decent looking. So, I definitely go out and get it if you want a Velociraptor figure, and if you like the Lost World Jurassic Park. Well, until next time, peace out, YouTube.